Bonjour à tous. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure for me to be with you this afternoon. Je vous souhaite la bienvenue à tous. I would like to welcome everyone to today's roundtable discussion on Energy 2.0 and impact of artificial intelligence and electrification. My name is Xin Gao. I'm the head of Quebec's delegation to Houston. This is my second official activity since I have been appointed to this position on June 7th. First, let me tell you a little about Quebec's international engagement. The Quebec government maintains bilateral relations with over 30 nations and states. It has a global network of 33 offices. The United States is a key partner for Quebec. 9 of these offices are located in the United States, and Texas is Quebec's largest commercial partner. My office in Houston covers 4 states in South Central of the United States. This includes Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. My team and I are working on the development of business projects between Quebec and on these territories in areas such as energy, artificial intelligence, where Quebec are global leaders. So during this webinar, 2 speakers from Houston will discuss the energy transition and mention the need they are looking for. You will also hear 2 Quebec-based experts to talk about artificial intelligence and electrification. We're convinced that the technological solutions, as well as Quebec's know-how in cutting-edge sectors such as AI, optic photonics, clean tech, and lithium-ion batteries can contribute to the advancement of energy transition. By building a bridge between Quebec and Texas ecosystems, many opportunities can be seized on both sides. So before our moderator takes over, here are a few housekeeping reminders. Everyone, please make sure you turn off your cell phones or put yourselves on mute. Second, there will be a question and answer period at the end of the activity. However, we invite you to send your questions in writing via the Q&A discussion box throughout the presentation. As well, if you would like to arrange a meeting with one of our offices, please contact Pierre Marco, who is our commercial attaché in our Houston office. You can find his contact on this webinar. Finally, I would like to introduce you to my colleague, Philippe Huneau. Philippe is today's moderator. Philippe is the head of the delegation for Quebec's delegation in Los Angeles and Silicon Valley. Philippe has tremendous knowledge in the energy sector, in the high-tech sector. So thank you, Philippe, for accepting my invitation to be our moderator for this event. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and I want to take this special occasion to welcome you in Texas. You have a great state, a great territory, and great partners, and I'm sure you'll do well, and we cannot wait to see you in Houston, and you promised me a good steak, so I'm looking forward to it. So I'm very excited to take part of this event. We really have a wonderful program with 4 dynamic speakers, so let's begin. Our first speaker, Jose Bisario, serve as the Senior Director of Global Energy 2.0 for the Greater Houston Partnership. Jose joined the partnership in April 2020 with 15 years of experience in business and project development, with majority of his work centered into the energy and the clean tech sector. Jose most recently served as the Director of Corporate Relations for Energy and Technology at the University of Texas at Houston, where he managed a portfolio of external industry partner representing the leading corporation in the energy, clean tech, automotive, and high-tech sectors. During this time at the University of Texas in Houston, Jose worked with the development team and researchers across campus to engage company in major interdisciplinary research initiative. He also served as a liaison for regional stakeholders, including cities, utilities, Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development Corporation, nonprofit, and other entities located in Central Texas. Jose, we are thrilled to have you hear and look forward to hear what you have to say. So what exactly is Energy 2.0?
Well, thank you, Philippe. I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak to our audience today. And I'm thrilled to be collaborating with the Quebec office in Houston and our partners in Quebec and Montreal, specifically on the topic of AI and machine learning, because really that's what Energy 2.0 is all about. It's really about the convergence of different industry sectors and areas of expertise coming together to add more intelligence and more efficient and effective infrastructure for the energy sector. So specifically around digital tech solutions being adapted and implemented in the energy system. And these new technologies are being developed for oil and gas production, upstream, midstream, downstream, but also for renewable energy and energy storage. So that's really what we're hoping to accomplish in Houston with our own ongoing transition of our energy sector, to work collaboratively with all the energy majors, the oil and gas industry, but also to attract a pipeline of new Energy 2.0 companies to bring these new capabilities to help us transition to a low carbon future. And so with that, Philippe, if you like, I can just go straight into my presentation.
Yeah, please. I think it will be very useful.
Yeah, let me just pull this up real quick.
It's always the stress of putting the presentation on. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Let me, okay. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Okay, let me go ahead and load that up full screen.
The Houston letters are very dynamic. So I cannot, looking forward to your presentation.
Well, and that's really on purpose. You know, Houston is a very dynamic city. We are, the fourth largest city in the United States. We have a population of over 7 million, a workforce of over 3 million. And we actually are the most diverse city in the United States. 1 in 4 Houstonians are actually foreign born. So we're very proud of our culture and our dynamic population in Houston. Let me see if I can get this to go to the next one. First of all, I'd just like to give a quick background before I get into the energy capital of the world slide. I want to talk a little bit about my role at the Greater Houston Partnership. We essentially serve as the regional chamber of commerce for the Houston region. We actually represent a 12-county region. It's approximately a 100-mile radius around Houston. We focus on economic development, advocacy. We also convene Houstonians on key issues. We have over 1,100 companies and businesses that are members of the partnership. So it's approximately 1/5 of Houston's workforce is represented by the Greater Houston Partnership. In the area of Energy 2.0 and energy transition, this is another very important key priority and objective for the partnership, to really work with the energy sector on transitioning our energy industry, our world-leading energy industry. We want to make sure that Houston continues to be the energy capital of the world, but we also want to make sure that we're leading the world in energy transition. So just to start us off, as far as the robustness of our global leading energy sector, we have actually 19 Fortune 500 energy corporate headquarters in Houston. We have a total of 25 Fortune 500 headquarters, and actually making us the largest Fortune 500 headquarters city in Texas and 3rd largest in the United States. So we keep adding Fortune 500 headquarters in Houston, which is tremendous. And we actually keep adding energy corporate headquarters. We just added NRG most recently. We have over 4,600 energy companies, a massive energy workforce with 250,000 energy workers. This makes up about a third of our regional GDP. And something that we've been working on pretty aggressively over the last 2 years is building up our capacity to build and launch new startup companies in the energy technology and innovation space. So we actually have recruited new startup development organizations to help support new energy innovation. As far as our leadership in Energy 2.0 or energy transition, there's a number of reasons why we feel we're already leading the world in energy transition. First of all, it's because of our energy talent, just the critical mass of energy engineering talent, PhDs, project development, accounting, finance, you name it. All these specializations within the energy sector are already in Houston. So we're making sure that we are leveraging that workforce to attract new Energy 2.0 companies. But also, if any of our talented energy workers have great disruptive ideas, breakthrough ideas, we want to encourage those individuals to go launch their new companies around that innovation. So we're providing a lot of resources to really transition our energy workforce, which is a key component to energy transition. We also have world-class energy research institutions with Rice University, University of Houston. We collaborate very closely with Texas A&M and also the University of Texas in Austin. A lot of the graduates in the energy disciplines, AI, machine learning as well, end up coming to Houston to work in the energy sector. So we have close relationships with our universities. We also have robust energy capital availability, venture capital, private equity, project finance firms who traditionally were investing in oil and gas project opportunities, but more recently are looking for low carbon project opportunities and really pivoting into new ESG, clean tech, renewable energy investment opportunities. So we're seeing a tremendous amount of capital available now in Houston to launch these new Energy 2.0 projects. Because we have the lion's share of the energy sector in Houston with massive facilities and infrastructure, refineries, petrochem facilities, chemical plants, we have the ability to quickly upscale new digital technologies and Energy 2.0 innovations to the scale and requirements of the global energy system. So a startup in Energy 2.0, the ability to work directly with an energy major on quickly scaling is something that is really unique in Houston. And that's something that we want to work closely with Quebec and Montreal on, is bringing these new innovations to Houston to adapt them to the energy sector. As I mentioned, we're also creating a landing pad for new Energy 2.0 startups. We also our mayor recently launched the Houston Climate Action Plan, which has very aggressive and bold goals on how Houston is going to be fighting climate change and also reinforcing our critical infrastructure. All of these goals are going to create new market opportunities and contract opportunities for Energy 2.0 companies. That's something we're leveraging to try to attract new companies to the region. And not only are we one of the fastest growing cities in the United States in terms of population and renewable energy development, but also resilient infrastructure projects. Houston is known for oil and gas, but we also are one of the hottest regions in Texas and the United States for renewable energy and energy storage project development. We have over 6 gigawatts of solar, wind, and energy storage projects already in the pipeline with interconnection agreements in place. That translates into somewhere around $6 billion in capital investment that's going into.
I'm sorry, I was able to jump on that. Can you elaborate from maybe a Quebec perspective? What are the advantages of having that?
Yeah, just Houston is really creating the market opportunities for these large scale grid storage projects, and so working with Quebec and Montreal and regions that are known for battery and AI and machine learning expertise, we can really serve as a place where these projects are getting built. So creating those connections and interconnections with companies in Quebec and Montreal that are developing new lithium-ion battery technologies or new battery management systems, the software that manages the batteries, or even on finding more environmentally friendly ways of extracting lithium from mines and the ground. So we definitely need partners on finding better sources of technologies and natural resources to build these batteries. So that's just one example. So, again, Houston is known as the global energy capital, primarily known for oil and gas, but we have a massive base of clean energy companies. We have over 200 clean energy companies operating in Houston today, over 100 solar companies, 30 wind energy, over 80 digital technology companies that are supporting oil and gas and renewables. We have companies that are working on data analytics, remote sensing, cloud computing, AI, machine learning, robotics. And what's interesting about these digital technology companies, not only are they serving the energy sector in Houston, they're also serving the life sciences and healthcare and the space industry, which is rapidly growing and evolving. So digital tech, Energy 2.0 is very much alive in Houston. It's really what we're seeing right now in terms of new job growth. The new jobs that are coming to Houston in the energy space are primarily in this digital tech and data analytics space. Speaking of digital tech in Houston, again, this has been one of the most active areas of our economic development initiatives over the last 24 months. Hewlett Packard Enterprise announced their global headquarters is relocating from Silicon Valley to Houston. We have new offices for Google Cloud, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft has just announced a big expansion. All of these big tech companies are now coming to Houston because they know that their current digital tech platforms and IT solutions can be adapted and applied to the energy industry to have a very positive effect on emissions and actually help us produce energy in a much more low carbon way. So digital tech has a great opportunity in Houston, and we've been aggressively trying to court these companies to Houston. And just, we get asked this question all the time. How you talk about Houston's digital tech and as an innovation city, how do we compare to other metros that are known as tech hubs? This slide is specific to Texas, but we also compare very favorably to the coast, to the West Coast and the East Coast. But just in terms of our tech industry in Houston, we have over 235,000 tech workers, almost 9,000 tech companies. And then when you look at how that compares to Dallas and Austin, we actually compete very well. We actually have a larger tech economy than Austin, which is getting a lot of attention these days. We have the largest clean energy economy in Texas, 7th largest nationally. If you look at the largest clean energy clusters in the United States, you're looking at New York and the San Francisco Bay Area. We are one of the fastest growing clean energy hubs in the United States. So these are points that we really want to emphasize in terms of the direction that the energy sector in Houston is going. And getting to our startup capacity for Energy 2.0, we've had a number of announcements with new startup development organizations. Of course, we'll hear from Kirk later on what's happening at Shell Tech Ventures. We have Chevron Tech Ventures. We have a lot of these incubators and accelerator programs that are launching. Halliburton Labs was recently launched just last year. It's new incubator space for clean tech companies on Halliburton's headquarter campus. And our big win from an economic development standpoint last year was the attraction of Greentown Labs to Houston. Greentown Labs being one of the largest clean tech incubators in North America, headquartered in Somerville, Massachusetts. They did a big nationwide search, and ultimately they decided that Houston is really where they need to expand to take advantage of the energy talent, the energy workforce, and the ability to work with large energy companies on adapting and building new technologies. We've had other announcements as well. The Welch Institute for Advanced Materials was announced last year. This was created through a grant from the Welch Foundation. This is the single largest grant the Welch Foundation has ever distributed. It was over $100 million. So that institute is now being launched at Rice. Rice Alliance also launched a new clean energy accelerator program. I already talked about Halliburton Labs and Greentown Labs. Amazon Web Services, I just learned about their new program the other day. Amazon Web Services is launching a new clean energy accelerator program as well in Houston. So it just goes on and on and on, and examples of how the tech industry, the digital tech industry are collaborating much more closely today with the energy sector. And as far as some of our emerging startups that we're very excited about, we have, there's a lot of diversity in the new startups and technologies that are launching out of Houston. From a carbon capture and storage standpoint, we have a very exciting company called Cemvita Factory. They have a partnership with Oxy and BHP, and they're essentially bioengineering microorganisms to convert CO2 to different types of chemicals. And so Cemvita Factory is they're raising a lot of money right now. They're essentially tripling the size of their workforce and moving into larger space. So you'll be hearing more about Cemvita Factory over the next several months. Another economic development win for Houston was Utility Global. They are a green hydrogen technology company that was based out of Utah, and their CEO made the decision last year to relocate their headquarters, their R&D, and eventually their full-scale manufacturing facility to Houston. So you'll be hearing more about that as well. Similar with Solugen, converting CO2 and other emissions to chemicals and doing it in a low carbon way. And then Greentown Labs has now over 30 Energy 2.0 startups that are now located inside the Greentown Labs facility in Houston, which is approximately a 40,000 square foot facility near Rice University in what we call the Innovation District in Houston. So just a lot of startup activity in this energy tech space. The Climate Action Plan, I won't spend much time on this, but essentially, the mayor announced the Climate Action Plan on Earth Day of last year, but that set several major milestones for Houston in terms of, converting, municipal fleet vehicles to EVs. We want to continue to build out more renewables and carbon capture technologies. We want to create at least 50 new Energy 2.0 companies in Houston over the next 5 years. We want to definitely make our buildings, our built environment more energy efficient by using new financing options such as PACE and other green lending options. And materials management. You know, it's a huge opportunity to try to divert waste from the landfill and use those raw materials to produce new energy resources. So there's specific goals that I think are going to be market opportunities for Energy 2.0 companies. And I think this is my last initiative I wanted to touch on, but we also recently launched a soil carbon storage and carbon credit trading program out of Rice University. We call it the B Carbon program. This was launched out of the Baker Institute of Public Policy. But essentially what Rice has done is they've sort of rewritten the rules on how you validate the amount of carbon stored in different types of soils, whether it be farmland, ranch land, wetlands, forest lands. And they've kind of rewritten the requirements on how a landowner or farmer can produce soil carbon credits on an annual basis and actually sell those credits to carbon emitting entities. So we're creating sort of a carbon credit trading hub or exchange where carbon emitting entities can go partner with landowners on carbon credit contracts. So this is a new initiative that just launched out of Rice. So we'll get into questions later, but that's just a quick overview on what's happening in Houston on Energy 2.0 and some of the key programs and initiatives that I'm focused on. I'll leave my contact information here if you want to jot that down, but you know, there's lots of ways to get in touch. But I'm going to hand it back to you, Philippe, to keep us moving forward.
Thank you very much. I think Houston is traditionally known as an oil and gas town. Could you go into the reason behind the motivation for a GHP decision to lead Houston into Energy 2.0?
Yeah, I think, you know, GHP being the lead economic development organization for the 12 county region, you know, what we're looking at strategically is where are the new jobs going to come from? You know, we feel that, you know, the future of energy is really low carbon energy. And we feel that there's opportunities to create new jobs in low carbon energy, whether that be by working with energy majors on creating new business models and diversifying their business model, or attracting these new Energy 2.0 companies to grow and expand. So we really are focused on where are those new energy jobs going to come from. So the GHP, Greater Houston Partnership, our perspective is, you know, we need to focus on how do we continue to attract companies in the energy space? How do we continue to develop new innovations that are going to help the global energy industry transition more quickly to really accelerate transition? And how are we going to attract new capital investment to the region? So we are still actively pursuing more traditional energy projects. You know, there are biomass facilities that we're recruiting. There are new refineries, new ship channel operations. But we're also looking at, you know, is there an opportunity to also establish a new carbon hub facility, an industrial decarbonization hub in Houston that could really take advantage of the existing oil and gas facilities and to really capture CO2 and do something really innovative there. So we're really looking at energy holistically across the board, and where are those economic development opportunities?
Okay, great. I cannot see exactly if there is some question from the participant. If there is, I would like the moderator to flag them to me so I can ask them to our panelists. Is there any? So I just want, because I'm not capable to look at them. So if not, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jose. It was very useful, and I'm sure that Jin will certainly be in contact with you. And as you mentioned, I like the way you pronounce that. Wrote it down. People from Houston are Austanian, very proud people and very dynamic people, and we can certainly you demonstrate that in your presentation. Thank you. Our next speaker is Kirk Coburn of Shell. Kirk, before I introduce you, is there anything you would like to add to, or anything related to Jose's presentation about the 2.0?
No, I thought Jose did a great job. Of course, he's one of our best spokespersons for the city. No, great job, Jose. Super impressed with all the work that you have done. It's really been a relatively short time that Houston's sort of embraced the, sort of this energy transition, and they've done it really well. So I give credit to Jose and a lot of people in the city for doing it, because it's one of, Houston's a great asset globally that has a lot of know-how around energy. We've been in energy, we know energy, and energy transition is really not a whole lot different from old energy. So
thank you. So maybe if I introduce you, Kirk, you are currently an investment director for Shell Venture, Shell's corporate venture capital fund. Shell's Venture invests and partners with entrepreneurs to bring a new technology and business model to market in order to lower costs, make our existing operation more sustainable, and accelerate the energy transition. Shell Ventures act as a strategic partner and make minority investment. And I would like, during your presentation, maybe if you can define the minority investment and select technology companies, including Shell, technology spin-out, and also act as an LP in some externally managed venture capital fund. You are also, Kirk, and it's very impressive, funder and managing director of Survey Venture, funder of a Sirius XMGA Tour, funder of chief outsider of LT Race Series, Butler Elder. You're a blessed husband and father, and have an avid golfer and surfer from what I've read. So Kirk does not have a presentation, so I'll go straight to the first question with you, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I just want to repeat myself, but it's a real true honor to have you on this event. And I have read your profile, and I have navigated through your personal website, kirkcoburn.com, and maybe we can put that on the board. Your passion for a cleaner environmental is remarkable, especially since you worked for an oil and gas company. Could you talk about this passion and the reason why you go into this?
Yeah, great question. I mean, ultimately, I grew up outside, living and playing in the outdoors, and I'm passionate about our planet and being able to continue to play and be outside. I think the one thing I realized when I didn't work in energy until 2010, so I've only been in the industry for 11 years, and I realized that who has the biggest know-how and knowledge around energy transition in the environment? It's the energy companies. I mean, they work, we work in very remote and hard to live places to produce energy for the planet, because people are asking for it, and the one thing we know about is that, we have a big energy challenge. There's a growing population, there's rising demand. So demand for energy is actually going up. And we can't produce clean energy fast enough. At the same time, we're trying to, mitigate these climate issues. And so it's a really complex equation. And for me, I thought it makes the most sense to work with the energy companies like Shell. I'm very happy to be with Shell, because Shell gets the problem. They understand that how challenging this energy challenge really is, and they're trying to solve it. And I'm part of that, which has been great.
And tell us about the Shell Venture. Could you give us a few examples of what problem Shell Venture was looking to solve? And I'll come back to my question. What is this kind of size of investment that you're doing?
Yeah, so Shell Ventures is the venture capital arm of Royal Dutch Shell. We have 7 hubs around the world. We have about 30 people on the team. I'm one of the key leaders there. And our job really is from one of our past chairmen of the board, he says, your job is to create tension at the executive committee. So really,
Were you good? Were you good at it?
I've been sanctioned a few times, so I think I'm pretty good at that. I'm good enough to stay employed but I keep the tension there. Yeah, we're trying to create optionality for Shell. And when we look at these new business models, whether it's hydrogen economy, whether it's taking plastic waste and making new products out of it, whether it's creating a sustainable aviation fuel, we serve to help Shell learn from startups. We help Shell create optionality by investing into technologies that we think will be game changing for the future of the company. A good example is I just led an investment a few years ago into a company called Corvus Energy, which is the leading energy storage supplier for the maritime industry. We are actually one of the largest charters of ships on the ocean. And we own a lot of our own ships. We charter a bunch of ships. And so we invest into a company that's leading in cleaning up, the emissions offshore. Now, Shell Ventures writes checks between 2 and 20 million. We take minority equity. We can lead deals. We also co-invest with other investors. We sometimes invest into other funds, but primarily we like to be active. And so we can lead deals, and we like to actively sit on boards to help these companies be successful.
Are you involved in any kind of with the incubator, accelerator, or seed? Because I know it's not your credo with Joe, what you just said with the 2 to 20, but do you have any harm for seed investment? And how do you look, or how do you foresee the investment in this field when there could be great technology, or maybe there's probably the one that needs the more help in order to position their enterprise?
I mean, I think we have vehicles. So Shell has different vehicles. We have Shell Game Changers that takes great ideas, like very early stage companies. We just created a new fund called SVX, which is Shell Ventures with an X. And it's really to do smaller investments, because ultimately in the venture capital space, writing a check less than 2 million is just as complicated as writing a $20 million check. And the challenge for entrepreneurs, and as an entrepreneur, it's like the first challenge is, if you have a great idea, there's friends and family and there are angel investors out there that will put money behind good people with good ideas. We just have a hard time writing checks that small. So we invest into things like, Greentown Labs in Houston, which was something Jose talked about. We're trying to help the community establish, good angel investing ecosystems. A lot of our members are actually active angel investors like myself. I still invest outside of Shell to help startups. And so we take a very heavy community focused view of the world.
I have 2 questions from the participant, and I don't know if they're related directly to you or Jose, but I think that they're very interesting. The first one is, what is the role of AI in the decarbonization of the energy industry?
So say that question again. Let me make sure.
What is the role of artificial intelligence in decarbonization of the energy industry?
I mean, AI can do so many things. I mean, I think for example, in our oil and gas industry, what AI has empowered us to do is to know when equipment's going to fail before it fails, because when equipment does fail offshore, it's very expensive and can be dangerous. So AI is super critical to our sort of traditional oil and gas business. In the power space, I mean, we're using AI now through some of the startups we invest in and look at is to do a better job of matching supply and demand, because renewable energy is not constant. The wind doesn't always blow, the sun doesn't always shine. And so what's happening as the electric grid around the world is becoming more distributed, it's becoming harder and harder to match supply and demand. And ideally, energy is ideally local. So if I produce energy, I'd rather send it to my neighbor next door to use it versus across multiple states. And so what we're seeing in the power space, AI is helping us make decisions better so that we have less brownouts or rolling blackouts, or how do we use wind power more efficiently or solar. And so AI is critical because it makes decisions faster and makes us understand the grid better, because there's so many more variables now. So, for example, I'm an investor in a company where this company called LO3 Energy, based in Portland, they're help individuals like you and me sell excess energy that let's say I have solar on my roof and I have too much solar, like I'm not using all that power. Well, I can sell that power in my neighborhood to someone else. Now, we can't do that without AI, because AI is looking at the grid and trying to stabilize it. And so AI is critical in the power industry. And then on the electric vehicle and the mobility side, you see what AI is doing for, remotely operated vehicles. We use AI to help our customers on sort of what chargers are available, and, looking at sort of the amount of battery space capacity you have in your car. And so where should you go to charge? How do you charge? AI is everywhere. So AI is a critical component to almost, every technology decision we use today.
Very interesting. How are the global E&P companies viewing Energy 2.0? What this mean for them, and what kind of strategy are they embracing?
Well, I think that the future is in the energy transition. And so, as you see sort of the factors we talked about earlier, where you have a growing population and an increase in the demand for energy is going up, it creates a real challenge, because not only do most of us want affordable energy, we want reliable energy, we want abundant energy, but also we want it to be clean energy and local energy, because energy is hard to transport. And so when you think about the demand for more energy, but it needs to be cleaner and local, that's right in the wheelhouse of most E&P companies. They've been providing energy and solutions to customers for a long time. They understand the transition. And so, most of the E&P companies that I've seen are moving as fast as they can towards the energy transition, but it's not easy, because these businesses are new. And so, for example, if we want to replace, methane for hydrogen, and using hydrogen instead of methane for like steel production, well, there is no hydrogen economy yet. Like, yes, we make hydrogen, but how do you transport hydrogen? You don't see hydrogen fuel stations. And so we have to rethink and rebuild a lot of infrastructure for this sort of energy transition economy to be big. And I think that's where the E&P companies are really good. They know how to scale ideas, and they know how to manage capital.
Excellent. If I'm talking to companies from Quebec, from Montreal, and I want to bring your attention to them, what is the kind of uniqueness that you're looking? What is the profile of Shell Ventures looking for in his investment? If I want to organize you, or Shin or myself want to organize you a tour of Montreal companies, so what are the profile that you're looking for in terms of investment?
I mean, we want companies to be solving an energy problem. So we only focus on energy. So if it's a software startup that doesn't have anything to do with energy, we probably aren't interested. But in terms of energy startups, we like great teams, so great people to invest in, and if they're solving an energy problem and that's energy transition related, we want to make sure that technology has been proven to some degree. We want it to have a working product. We want them potentially to have revenue. We will invest earlier, but ideally we'd like to see some revenue. We'd like to see that the technology is actually unique, and something that we can invest in. And those are sort of the profiles. I mean, I'm being generic, but ultimately that's the profile we're looking for.
Very interesting. So we'll organize you a fan tour. Jose, is there anything you would like to add at this point?
Yeah, no, I mean, going back to the AI, the importance of AI and decarbonization, I think it's just, as Kirk mentioned, it's just critical, and it's already so embedded in so many different parts of our energy system, but it's increasingly being adapted, and AI and machine learning technologies are constantly evolving. But nowhere better do you see AI with with smart grid, microgrid deployment, especially with energy storage, being able to store more of the intermittent renewables when they're not, when the sun's not shining and the wind's not blowing, and being able to deliver that power at strategic times of the day when price arbitrage is optimal. So California has a big issue where they produce a lot of renewables, but it's very expensive in certain times of the day. And so being able to add more storage, store the renewables, and then put it back on the grid, it's a big opportunity. And so you need really sophisticated AI systems to determine when you're charging batteries and when you're delivering that power back to the grid. And then of course from a neighborhood scale, substation scale, especially in Houston, where we are incredibly vulnerable to extreme weather events, hurricanes, and floods, which, by the way, predominantly impact low-income neighborhoods more than any other neighborhoods. We need to be able to deploy more microgrid and AI technologies across the entire region to try to balance the grid and help us, recover from these major events more quickly. And it also has to help us lower the cost of renewables overall, and lower the cost of installing these systems, especially in socioeconomic disadvantaged parts of the region. So just want to add that point there.
A very, very good point. And actually, I know that there is a question of hydrogen from the participant, but this I think that will keep for everybody on the panel to be answered. So maybe one last question, Kirk. How do you see electrification impacting the vision and goals of Energy 2.0?
Well, I mean, I think the goal is electrify as fast as you can. So, so the question is, how do you do it? And so that's at the intersection of businesses providing solutions. It requires consumers wanting more electrified things. So whether you put in a electric water heater, or you buy an EV, electric vehicle, and also requires government participation. So I think everyone is, most large, regions around the world, but what we're seeing is, I think everyone wants to move towards electrification as fast as possible. Every sort of local region is different in how they're going to go about it. And we at Shell, and when we're investing, we're looking at what is the path to electrification in this space. How do we support it? And so it really does come down to move as fast as you can, but you have to be smart, because it's not easy. You can't just electrify overnight. But electrification is critical to the future energy economy, to being self-sustaining and sufficient.
Thank you very much, Kirk. Very, very appreciate, and it was very knowledgeable. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Our next speaker is, I'd like to call him a good friend, is Eric Rondeau, the Senior Strategic Advisor, Battery and Electrification Initiative. A great title, Eric. Mr. Rondeau, it's kind of fun to make it official between us, but I'll play the game. So Mr. Rondeau is mandated by the Québec Battery Initiative Steering Committee to coordinate the efforts to attract foreign investment and accelerate the creation of a lithium battery industry in Quebec, which is one of the priority of our government. The Quebec Battery Initiative unites forces from Hydro-Québec, Quebec Invest, Ministère of Economy, under the guidance of a steering committee with all the senior personnel of each organization. The Quebec Battery Initiative also aims to develop globally competitive lithium battery manufacturing capacity in Quebec. Efforts will be directed in 4 segments: The first one is to develop mining and refining capacity for active battery materials, attract foreign manufacturers and investment in battery component, deploy competitive logistic and initiative to make Quebec battery greener, recyclable and distinctive in our market. I don't have to, everybody knows that we have 99% of our energy that is clean coming from hydroelectricity. Provide a specific regulatory, tax, and financial incentive for the battery sector. So, Eric, thank you for joining us, and the floor is all yours, and I'm sure you're going to take good care of it.
Well, thank you, Philippe. I hope everyone helps me, and it's a pleasure to present after Jose and Kirk. Kirk, I mean, prior to joining the battery strategy, I'm involved in a clean tech V2G technology that you might have heard, Decibel. So as we've been pitching to your team, and now we're scaling up. So you'll be happy that very soon we'll be around California and Texas to scale up. So you'll see our product. So things are coming out of Quebec on this side as well. So it's the right combination of a DER solution and AI combined. So it's a good thing. So let me tell you a bit more about the Quebec Battery Initiative, like Philippe is saying. I mean, the whole idea, and I'll get into a presentation after, but we really started that about 2 years ago. And the Quebec government mandated a consulting group called McKinsey, very simply. And we asked them globally, is there a window for Quebec with our big element of clean energy that is already in place for the 60s now, to develop an alternative for the battery supply? So we're all talking about energy storage today, but at the bottom of it, it's about batteries. It's about building batteries, which is the best, most economical solution. There are other technology, but the most coming as we see the scale for the EVs as much as the energy storage solution, it's about manufacturing batteries that will have a lot of cycle, a lot of capacity in terms of gigawatt hour of energy storage. And the window was very clear in a sense that we have to integrate those batteries into the vehicle or to the energy storage unit to tap into the renewable energy undispatchable capacity and make it more dispatchable. But we need to manufacture those batteries and get those minerals. And the whole idea is currently 80% of those batteries they come from Asia. And now we have the opportunity for the rest of North America to build an option, to build an alternative based on our current capacity of scaling up on critical minerals and also scaling up on our clean energy large capacity of the Quebec renewable 99%, like saying Philippe, hydroelectric grid. So let me get into my presentation, and hopefully everyone can jump into questions and exchange. But hopefully you'll see that this is a vision, but we're already like setting up the key players. In the coming months will be more and more precise. Desktop. Let me make sure I'm having the right presentation. Share. You tell me when you see my screen, please.
We're seeing it.
Okay, excellent. So let me get into, all right. So as I said, I mean, we believe, and with the information and with the current, let's say, journey that we're putting in place with that battery strategy, we feel that we have all the right elements to really develop an alternative that could help, let's say, Texas and all the states of North America that wants to bring, let's say, the electrification transition into their grid. And Quebec has the ability to build a clean alternative battery supply to the current the current position of the Asian supply. So let me get into the detail. Currently, everyone might know, but the cluster of the battery manufacturing is in Asia, a lot in China, strongly also with strong expertise in Japan and in Korea. But in big ways, it's manufactured with non-sustainable coal-fired energy. There's a lack of traceability of strategic mineral. I'll show you a map for an extract of benchmark mineral. It comes from all over the planet, and how good it is and how ESG, let's say, compliant it is. This is debatable. And the long-term battery access to the key mineral is uncertain. I mean, no secret that the largest portion of electric vehicle and energy storage solution being developed are in Asia now. And then the largest volume of electric vehicle are being scaled up there. So how much, if we really want to push forward into our energy transition, as much for transport and storage, we're better to find a solution for ourselves in North America and the Occidental market. And the value chain is stretched all over the planet. I mean, there's a risk to the continuity of the business. So what do we have in mind? So that gives you a landscape of, if you're looking at a cell, an NMC cell currently delivered in America, where it comes from? It comes from somewhere in Asia, but where are all the minerals, the lithium, the cobalt, the nickel, comes from all over the planet. So it's a huge carbon footprint of travel, of components, when in fact, as we go to Quebec, I'll show you a bit later on the map, we need to be able to answer to those demands of future cell. And I'm looking I'm showing you this slide where obviously Tesla is a big future provider in the requirement of battery, but we are more probably in the terawatt hour now of demand of battery. So we are scaling up even more than that. I mean, those numbers are probably even far out. I mean, from my team, we need to revise that. Some of you might already know that we need to go more and more with all the demand that is going towards the big three in Detroit, and all the others are scaling up in Texas with Tesla, and all the others also in California. So how do we answer to that and create ourselves a North American alternative? So, as I said, in Quebec currently, I think we can build a strong option because we are located not far from, let's say, the Northeast manufacturing side of the big three, but also all the OEMs from Europe that are setting up their operation on EV side. And we have the railway, we have all the transport, the deep seaport access. We are under a free trade agreement. Canada, we are under free trade agreement with the US, but also with Europe. So that makes, let's say, the strong advantages as USMCA scale up, as the rule of origin of manufacturing battery components into the North American space, we have the ability to use our clean energy and access to resource combined to supply the solution where we can combine all of those components of AI, energy storage, and future battery advanced solution. So as I said, you saw the map of all over the planet where it comes to the mineral. When it comes to Quebec and neighboring provinces, we have the lithium, we have the nickel, the cobalt, the manganese nearby, and all of this combined with, let's say, the proper transformation downstream of the value chain, we can build, let's say, a North American secure alternative. So I'm repeating a bit, but that's the core of the potential opportunity that we can build globally for North America. Where we are currently, essentially based on clean energy and clean processes, we already have some good players in the industry. Johnson Matthey, who's developing the cathode LFP solution, is already in place operating out of Quebec, and they're supplying a lot of the battery supply component. The LFP being, let's say, an alternative to the NCA and MC battery as well, but it's certainly like a good window. Volkswagen announced, Tesla announced, and it's already also used in some energy storage solution, because this is a nice combination of new cathode active material solution. Namaska Lithium, it's the upcoming lithium provider of lithium hydroxide. We're scaling on them. Investment Quebec, we are investor in there, and we are scaling the operation to answer to the demand. And the processes are based on green electrolysis transformation and a closed loop process. That's something that is strong. Lithium recycle, I mean, they are building also on clean energy processes to recycle those batteries as they come to end of life. And it's a hydrometallurgical process that is that is a very low carbon footprint. That's the focus of providing the cathode active material. And I'll show you the little secret. The bottleneck of the industry is about the cathode and the cell manufacturing. On the anode side, two sides of a battery, the plus, the cathode, the negative, the anode. The natural graphite, as much as the silicon, needs to be addressed. These are, let's say, some of the key components of the battery recipe. Nouveau Graphite is scaling up with a full electric transformation operation, and they are, let's say, setting up operation and scaling up on their manufacturing. And Ferroglobe is already operating in Quebec. So this is the first piece of the puzzle that we have in place. And then, I mean, where we are going, it's about building that circular economy. We really are saying that, as I showed you about the recycling, we have the critical mineral in place. And now we want to address the core of the bottleneck of the battery industry. It's about manufacturing the cathode active material, the precursor of those components in a circular economy way, from the mine to the cell, and recycling this from the mine that we have, say the mines themselves in the northern area of the country, but we want to build also that urban mine recycling of the depleted battery. At the heart of it, it's the advantage that we have built in Quebec. We have a 99% hydroelectric grid. I mean, probably the cheapest rate in North America. The grid is very reliable, very strong. And it gives us, let's say, an economic advantage that we can build on. And obviously, I mean, the low carbon footprint of hydroelectricity is a fantastic advantage when we look at the current processes of manufacturing battery. These are very energy intensive processes comparable to aluminum smelters equivalent. So this being in place, this is where, I mean, we're putting that together. And there's one other place in the world that is doing a similar strategy, no secret. Is if you look up, it's about Scandinavia. Finland, Sweden, Nordvolt, BASF, a number of the key player of the battery industry. They're setting up operation to supply the OEM operator of Europe as much as now they're scaling up also to have a European alternative out of clean energy and access to mineral in the Scandinavian countries. So it's a similar approach. So in a nutshell, where we are, we can build a secure, stable, sustainable North American battery supply based on our lowest GHG emission capacity. So we can build a reliable access to critical mineral, shorter value chain, and also demonstrate an ethical traceability. The ESG concept of the future battery will be key. So some of you might have heard about the Global Battery Alliance that is enabling what we call the battery passport that will show the traceability, the carbon footprint, as much as the ESG compliance of manufacturing of those batteries. This is something that we are putting in place as well in our battery strategy. So we'll be able to display how much of the Quebec battery is clean and renewable and affordable, as much as being affordable. So what is the situation of our industry cluster? Obviously, on the raw mineral, which is obviously the landmark where we start, we have the lithium on a number of mines that are scaling up, the graphite, nickel, and cobalt. We have a lot of nickel producer in Ontario nearby, and combined with cobalt and the other minerals, the precursor that are part of the downstream process. And at the heart of it, this is where we are doing our attraction, our industrial attraction now to bring, let's say, the active material, the cathode and the anode material producer that will supply manufacturing of cell, of NMC, LFP, NCA type of different lithium-ion cell that will supply the battery for energy storage as much as the electric vehicle adoptions. And then, I mean, this is where we're putting ourselves in position to help the rest of the North American industry when it comes to the assembly, battery pack modules, and vehicle integration. This is where, I mean, this is more for the large scale of the OEM operation of Ontario in US. And in Texas, recently with the Tesla scaling up, obviously, I mean, this is where we leave it to the rest of the North American industry to scale. We have some local players, nonetheless. Leon Electric buses, BRP, the recreational product that you might have heard, the Sea-Doo ski-doos of the world, they are going to an electric program. So some of those are nice local expertise of electrification that we have developed in Quebec for a little time. We have a long time of experience of research. One of my major colleagues that I have in the team of our battery strategy is Dr. Karim Zaghib. Karim has been leading those research development of the timeline that I'm showing you here. We are owner with Hydro-Québec of fundamental patent on the lithium-ion battery emergence. So that's give us, let's say, a strong understanding and capability of R&D in improving the battery processes in the future as we scale up. I'm repeating again, this is the comparison of that slide of our cost of our power against the rest of the different major cities of America. I mean, when you look at the typical operation of cathode active material that are in the range of 200, 300, 400 megawatt of operation, that becomes to start to count on the OPEX budget of a project and makes the difference of making it or fly or not. So pretty much my last slide. Essentially, we are well located. We're focusing on from the key minerals to the CAM and pre-CAM and cell manufacturing. CAM, pre-CAM again, cathode active material. These are the key elements that are currently in majority manufactured in Asia. This is where we're saying we want to be the secure alternative, North American alternative to do those components and then supply that to the rest of the UM and the battery storage of North America. As much as, since we're well located, it's easy to ship to Europe, let's be frank as well. So that's the key element. So final element, I want you to keep in mind, Canada, Quebec is a stable fiscal environment. I mean, we are in free trade agreement, obviously, with the rest of America. We have reliable, clean energy, very low cost. Our cost operation is very competitive as well. I mean, with our Canadian exchange, it's something to consider, but in overall, also in Quebec. Critical mineral, scaling up on the key minerals on the ground. Our R&D background, as I showed you very briefly, our timeline, and we have been consistently working on the EV transition. Quebec, as an example, as an equivalent ZEV ruling as California. In fact, it was inspired out of California. So we have the highest adoption of electric vehicle per capita of every province in Canada. So I think I'm true. That's it. So I'm going to stop there. Philippe, over to you. Philippe, you're on mute, Mr. Philippe.
Okay, great presentation, but I just want to keep two questions for you, Eric.
Yes.
First of all, I would like to say that all presentation will be available, and I know that we got a lot of questions, and I think that will be short in time, but we'll try to make sure, and if you have question, please address it to mention to who you address it, and we'll make sure that Pierre Marcoux will follow up with the question if we're not capable to answer them at the end of the session. So two quick questions for you, Eric. How does Texas energy industry can benefit from the battery ecosystem of Quebec to speed up their the energy decarbonization acceleration?
Absolutely, good question. The first parameter is about secure supply. So we know that as we see the bottleneck of the industry will be about manufacturing the cell and the upstream component. Since we are already on the track of this, we are in a strong attraction, and a number of projects will be announced in the coming, say, months and year. We believe we can certainly be participating to improve the security of supply of that energy storage. I mean, it will be part of it. So it's either or having, let's say, a North American alternative on remaining dependent of outside of the North American space in terms of battery storage solutions. The integration, the intelligence, this is all of what we can do in North America. But I'd say the current race for, let's say, the low cost, the objective $100 per kilowatt hour of the battery to be competitive. I mean, this is where it needs to be maintained, and that we can position ourselves to also be part of that game instead of leaving it, let's say, to outside of North America. That's the main part, Philippe. It's about security of supply.
And how does Quebec can help America reduce the geopolitical risk of the global battery value chain and secure more secure the electrification transition, Eric?
What we see is we have a number of players that are from Asia, different countries that are looking to join into America because the market is going like that. So by having the advantage of having them locally operating here, they will be there to supply, to respond to our need that we scale. And instead of being, let's say, probably in priority towards other market, Asian themselves. So that's one of them. The second element, we are building our own capacity, our own expertise in complement or alternatively to the Asian market. So this is where, I mean, we reduce our exposure to geopolitical tension, nothing to be hidden there. But at the same time, we have our own independence. So this is where the nuance is. Some of them will be from abroad, expanding their operation from Asia towards America. Some is going to be new, emergent, players that are, let's say, born and breed of the North American industry.
Okay, and if you allow me, maybe one quick last question before going to Laurence. Looking at opportunity for electrification and energy 2.0, describe what impact Quebec will make in supporting the North American and the world.
Impact Quebec or investment Quebec, so you're saying?
Both. I think that it's a good point. Maybe you could present the two avenues.
Yes. Okay. Well, the battery strategy is really like focusing on those components of the battery, of the core of the energy transition, which is the battery. This is the future. Some people are saying this is the future oil. I wouldn't say that much, but it's certainly one of the components of the energy transition to support the renewable. So we're saying that we need to be able to do that and develop that in a cost-effective way near our market of our new electric vehicles that are coming in an energy storage solution. So we need to do that effectively based on our mineral that we have a control and we have access to it with the low carbon footprint. If we don't do that, it will be the same story that we have. It's going to come from all over the planet. So we remain on that focus that we can certainly support, let's say, the energy transition, because otherwise, where else? I mean, we can combine all of those elements. There's only a few places in the world that, from what we understand, that can combine those elements from the mine to the cell, combined with the clean energy all together. So that's going to be pretty much our pitch. Simple pitch, but that remains to say it's kind of difficult to click all those boxes in a single area.
Thank you very much. And once again, I know that there is a question for you on your slide 5 and 6, but maybe you can type the answer directly to the forum during to answer another this question. So now I would like, thank you. I would like to introduce you, Laurence Fouquet-Langlais. She is a director of business development for the Americas for Mat Montréal International, which is the economic promotion agency of Greater Montreal. And I want to mention that we're very proud of that. They're winning prizes in terms of economic agency year after year. So I think they're very dynamic. Our role is to promote the Montreal business environment to foreign companies, supporting their setup or expansion in the Greater Montreal. She joined Montréal International in 2017. Laurence has worked closely on multiple international expansion of companies from Silicon Valley, Los Angeles, Texas, Mexico, and Brazil. In 2019-2020, because of her knowledge on the artificial intelligence ecosystem, Laurence has also been entrusted with the project management of the establishment of a global AI organization in Montreal, a mandate granted to Montreal International and by the government of Quebec. So, Laurence, I would like you to share with us your view and your experience, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Philippe. Very happy to be with you today. Yeah, as you were mentioning, actually, I joined Montreal International in 2017, and it's funny because I joined Montreal International pretty much at the same time, or like when Montreal became a very important AI hub. So I kind of had the privilege to be to be part of it, basically. So let me just share my screen and I'll start this presentation. Sorry, it lags a little bit. Okay. Do you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Maybe you can just make sure to put it in the presentation mode.
Yeah, just a second. Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Great. So let me just start by showing you a quick overview of what happened in Montreal over the past 4 to 5 years. Basically, this is just a sample of the companies that invested into an AI labs in Montreal over since 2016. What happened in Montreal? How did we actually get this AI hub that we have right now? Well, first, it all started with this guy. This guy is called Yoshua Bengio. He's now first in Canada and second in the world in the 2021 top scientist ranking for computer science and electronics. He also won the Turing Awards in 2018, along with two of his friends, actually Yann Lequin and Jeffrey Hinton. These three guys that we call the Tres Amigos of AI, basically they made a breakthrough in AI that is called neural networks. And what happened after this breakthrough, it's, well, basically it became the new trend. It developed the field of deep learning. And what happened with Jeffrey Hinton is that he actually went to Google, Yann Lequin went to work at Facebook, and Yoshua Bengio decided to stay in the academia, and he decided actually to continue teaching at the Université de Montréal and to train new students actually into his discipline. So what this actually helped Montreal, because we created a talent pool in Montreal, actually a talent pool formed mostly by students of Yoshua Bengio, people from all around the world, that wanted to come and study with him. And he also contributed to attracting a lot of actually the big AI giants to Montreal. First of all, because he co-founded with another AI scientist, Element AI, which was the most funded actually AI startup in Montreal that recently got acquired by ServiceNow. And he also was an advisor for Microsoft, so he convinced them to actually set up shop in Montreal as well. He was in touch with a lot of scientists in the scientific community, so he convinced also his friend Hugo La Rochelle to come back to Montreal. Hugo was working for Twitter in Boston. He convinced him to come back to Montreal to lead the Google Brain Labs that we saw previously on the timeline. That was actually one of the first AI labs to set up shop in Montreal. So just in a nutshell, this is how actually the ecosystem got formed, is mostly because we had the talent pool and companies were looking for talent. So they came to Montreal, and it created a virtual circle where when you have more companies, you have more possibilities for people to work in AI, to study in AI. So it's exactly this. It's a virtual circle. So we created this ecosystem that we now have. Most of it thanks to this professor that we have. Why these companies also set up shop in Montreal? Well, a lot of reasons. Mostly now Montreal is recognized as the top 3 best places to invest in AI in North America. Well, as I mentioned, world leaders are here. We have a cutting edge expertise developed by Yoshua Bengio, but also by Joël Pinault, who's the head of the Facebook lab in Montreal, by Doina Prekop, who's the head of the DeepMind lab in Montreal, Hugo La Rochelle that I mentioned, and Irina Rich, who's actually she was recently appointed with a Canada Research Chair in AI. What is really particular, and I want to underline this, with the scientific community in Montreal is mostly that all of them, if not, well, maybe not all of them, but the vast majority of them, they work part-time like as professors and part-time as head of labs, which actually help to fuel this talent pool that we have, because they make sure that they have students every year coming to study with them, and that they can train these students, and then they can actually fuel this talent pool that we have. So this is also why we have now in Montreal the highest concentration of researchers in deep learning, more than 600 researchers actually, that are mostly working at MILA, the Montreal Institute for Learning Algorithms, one of the most important research labs in the world. We have, as you can see, 14,000 university students that are enrolled in artificial intelligence and data related programs. And all of this actually couldn't have been possible if we wouldn't have had the support by both the government of Quebec and the government of Canada. Actually, they invested a lot in creating this ecosystem. This actually led to investment in more than $3 billion in AI labs by corporate companies actually that decided to set up shop in Montreal. One of the good decisions of the government of Canada, and that actually shows the importance of Montreal as an AI hub, they decided to set up one of the superclusters. So the AI supercluster, they decided to set it up in Montreal, which is called Scale AI. Canada has 5 superclusters, and well, Montreal was selected actually as the HQ of the AI supercluster one. And also the other particularity of the ecosystem I'd like to underline is mostly the important possibilities of collaboration in between the researchers, the research community, and the industry. So a lot of programs exist, which is Prompt AI, Scale AI, MyTax. These programs are mostly like grants or financing programs. And they actually encourage the collaboration in between the industry and the scientific community. One of the big research center, actually, it's an umbrella research center. It's called IVADO, so the Institute for Data Valorization. It regroups a lot of research chairs and labs. Mila is part of it. It's probably the most important one, mostly focusing on fundamental research. But as you can see, other research chairs are part of IVADO, and it's extremely beneficial to companies because they only have one door to actually access a lot of different research chairs, and they can actually combine research in multiple domains just by entering IVADO, sorry. What also happened in Montreal, and this is maybe interesting for Kirk, is that Montreal has emerged as a very important startup hub. What happened over the past years, I'd say a lot of VCs started to be very active in Montreal, mostly because of the AI hub that was actually exploding, but also because of the tech hub in general. I mean, Montreal traditionally was really strong in the aerospace industry, in the video games industry, and animation and VFX as well. So all this technological hub actually helped support the AI hub that we have. And it encouraged a lot of VCs to be more and more active. Actually, 4 of the most VCs active in Canada are HQ'd in Montreal. You can see on the screen a couple of investments that have been made over the past years. You can see also that a couple of funds are mostly focusing on AI. And there's something very interesting as well. And you mentioned earlier, I think it was Jose who mentioned Greentown Labs. Actually, Greentowns is working a lot with Second Muse, and Second Muse recently established a fund in Montreal that is called Clio that will be mostly focusing on climate tech. So it will act as a fund, but also as an accelerator in Montreal. These are just a sample of the AI the accelerators that we have. Most of them are generalists, but one is very specialized in AI, and is the Techstars Montreal AI Accelerator. This is also a very interesting fact because Techstars, as you all know, they have incubators, accelerators all around the world. Some of them are industry focused, some of them are not. And they decided to actually set up their AI focused accelerator in Montreal because they saw the potential of the ecosystem that we have. These are a couple of companies that we have in Montreal that are developing AI as a service. And this could be very interesting, mostly for the energy industry. And I think this is something they should probably tap in. It's the fact that we have the talent pool in Montreal. A lot of actually startup and scale up now have focused on developing AI platforms that can be used by different type of industries. So 2 of them are Strategy AI and Data Performers. Data Performers is a company that is actually, well, as the name says it, but they use data to actually make companies more performing better. So they developed a platform that is called Macula AI, who is actually, it's an AI-powered visual inspection, and it allows company to be actually to go faster and with less effort because of the platform. Their platform is mostly used in smart manufacturing, in industry, in energy industry as well. And the other platform is developed by Strategy AI. It's called Kepler. It's mostly and if I can simplify it, it would be kind of a WordPress for AI, in the sense that it is developed in the way that people with no machine learning experience can actually use this platform and adapt it to their needs in order to make a better decision with the data they have. This is a sample of leading companies that are active in the energy and AI in Montreal. Earlier, we had this question around how can AI can actually be used for decarbonization. Well, some of the companies in Montreal are actually working on this. I would like to point maybe Thermo AI and Caesar Energy. Both are developing technology to reduce the CO2 emissions, the carbon emissions. And Thermo AI is actually developing a smart control that could minimize the carbon emission, and by visualizing and tracking the combustion in real time. I'd also like to point out maybe the Petro AI solution. This is super interesting because Petro AI is actually a Houston company. It's a Houston company that decided 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, to set up shop in Montreal to tap in the local talent pool. So one of their main researchers is actually a professor at McGill University, and they developed a team in Montreal to build this model that they have that is precisely used by the energy companies in Texas. This is just to give you an overview of the talent pool. Well, I mentioned earlier the students, but this is to give you an overview of the talent pool. We have close to 20,000 workers with AI skills in Montreal. We are seeing an increase. Over the last 12 months, we've seen an increase of 22%. So it's the talent pool is here. It's still growing. So that's very good news. And finally, the last reason I'd say most of the companies, well, it's not the major reason because talent is really the new gold, but it's also a good plus, I'd say. And I think Eric mentioned it as well, is because the operation costs in Montreal are really, really advantageous for AI labs, and because we have a lot of incentives to actually, we have a software development incentives, and we also have like 2 very strong R&D tax incentives, which actually gives an advantage to the companies that want to set up shop in Montreal. This is an overview of the tax credits that we have. I won't go into too much details right now, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask them and I'll be happy to answer. And as of now, I think that will conclude my presentation.
Merci beaucoup, Laurence. It was very useful, and I think that it's clear it demonstrates the uniqueness of Montreal AI ecosystem. But how could you describe with an example maybe the the dynamic relation between the different player and the relationship of the ecosystem between company, startup, university, or research industry, and even more the government? Do you have something in mind that you can share?
Well, actually, I think I just skipped it in the slide before. I don't know. Do you still see my screen? Okay. Anyway, but Parachem Chemicals is actually a really good model. Actually, it's a super interesting model. It's a joint venture between Suncor Energy and Invest Québec, and so they basically, what happened is that Suncor was Parachem is actually a producer of polyester. And it has nothing to do necessarily with energy, but they decided to actually, Suncor decided to buy Parachem, and they decided to do it in a joint venture with Invest Québec. And both of them actually owns Parachem now, and they are working together with Polytechnique to develop, they do R&D to lower their carbon emissions. So this is and maybe just an example of how it's important in Quebec. Actually, it's probably as I mentioned, the main characteristic of the ecosystem is that corporate and the academia, they really work together. There's a lot of programs that facilitate this, and it's the way we work basically in Quebec. So I don't know if it answers your question, Phil.
Yeah, it does. I would like maybe to take, because there's 4 minutes left, to open the floor to everybody, to all the panelists. And I would like to ask you, as you understand Energy 2.0 and the resource available with AI and electrification, what do you see as the low-hanging fruit opportunities to be embraced by today's energy company? I might direct the question after that to Kirk first, Eric, Jose, and then also at the end, maybe Laurence, you can say, how can we, Quebec and Montreal more specifically, can partner with the Texas Enterprise?
Well, it sounds like to me, I just need to look at all the companies in Quebec. It sounds like you guys got a really thriving ecosystem, and we need to start looking closer at the startups there. So that the action's on me.
Jose, do you have anything to add on this?
Well, it's very impressive what's happening in Montreal and with the AI hub that you've established and the innovations that are coming out. There's just a tremendous amount of synergies that I think are already happening between the energy sector and AI technologies and Montreal-based companies. You mentioned Petro AI, Houston company, but is establishing a presence in Montreal. I really think that is a big opportunity, is getting more of our energy companies in Houston to either collaborate with Montreal AI companies or expand there to gain that expertise. Just the amount you mentioned that there's 14,000 students enrolled in AI programs. I mean, it's amazing how much talent you're producing in the AI space. And you look at any number of major energy companies in Texas and the struggles that they're going through with dealing with data and dealing with optimizing of equipment and infrastructure. One example comes to mind, and a conversation I had with an oil field services company that operates in the Permian Basin, and they talk about all the time where the wells that they're managing are producing terabytes of data each day. And first of all, getting that data to the surface and then getting it up into the cloud, and then having their data scientists pour through it. They really want to be able to automate more of those processes with the data, so that they can really make real-time decisions at the oil well on drilling operations or just managing methane or emissions or other aspects of production. And so I think there's a number of ways that we could work together on bringing the AI expertise in Montreal to Houston and creating these collaborations with the energy sector.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, but how can we, I think that this forum was organized today was great, and I think it established and putting the basis for future collaboration. But if you have to think on a ballpark way, what could be the next step in order to emphasize and build these bridges between Quebec and Houston?
Yeah, I think Kirk just mentioned this. I mean, I need to get to Montreal. I'd like to go visit. I'd like to meet with your thought leaders and these companies that are emerging in the AI space. And I think we need to become more familiar with what's happening on the ground in Montreal. And likewise, we need to continue to host your experts and leaders in Houston. Because Houston is evolving at such a rapid pace on the energy front, especially in this energy 2.0 space. during the pandemic where we couldn't really travel, a lot has happened, with Greentown Labs, the Rice University Innovation District, the ION smart grid or smart cities incubator. There's a number of new facilities that are now in place and online. So I think just, we need to start traveling and become more familiar with what's happening.
And now maybe to conclude, Eric and Laurence, this being said, what can we do in order to welcome the people of Houston and companies, funds like Shell in Montreal? What will be the main event for you in terms of organizing these things and collaborating with these people?
Well, I'd be more than happy to host you guys in Montreal. I can't wait for the border actually to reopen.
Yeah.
I've been traveling a lot to Texas.
It's coming.
Yes, fingers crossed. Yeah, I used to travel a lot to Texas, but I will be traveling again for sure. So definitely, it's not only on you, Kirk, on you, Jose, to connect. I mean, I will reach out as well, and I think it would be very good actually to have a delegation coming over to Montreal. This is something we do on a regular basis. I mean, we host companies, we host delegation when they want to have a better overview of the Montreal ecosystem, mostly specifically for the AI ecosystem. We've done it a couple of times. We've done it, not last year, but the year before. And I'd say that over the last 3 or 4 years, we've been doing it with investors from Silicon Valley. They were coming over for the F1, but there was also a good opportunity to meet with the local AI ecosystem. So we can definitely try to find an event in which you want to participate, and we can have a delegation coming over around this event. I'll be super happy.
Eric, do you want to add? Merci, Laurence. Do you want to add on this?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I mean, since we said that our battery strategy is really about attracting, let's say, some of the key battery manufacturing components, we have 2 of our potential projects now that are from Texas, and they're just waiting to come and look for the site where they would co-locate. So that's exactly where we are waiting to have the border to open, to be frank with you. But I mean, they are used to work in the research environment of the battery that we have put in place. I mean, and now, I mean, they want to confirm and linked up with all the critical mineral supplies scale up. So looking forward to have some of our colleagues of the battery industry to show up and build the future. But it's really coming like a steam train.
So thank you very much. So in order to conclusion, I will not do a big conclusion. I think that it's very important for Quebec through the office and the delegation